What is going on, guys? We are talking about carburetors. Got a 1984 YTM200. It's not running, been sitting around for a long time. We're gonna clean this carburetor. Let's get into it. So the first step to determine if you've got a carburetor issue is, of course, you've got an engine that just won't start. So if it's a carburetor issue, that means you're not getting fuel. So what we can do is, here's our carburetor. Here's where our air filter would be. I'm gonna spray a little starter fluid, carb cleaner, something that's combustible in here, and try to start it again. If it runs for a split second, that tells me I've got spark, I've got compression, I got everything else I need. I just don't have fuel. So we'll need to take that carburetor off and clean it. Let's go ahead and see. Just spray a little of the carb cleaner in there. See if it'll fire up. There it is. So that tells me this engine is not getting fuel. When I add fuel to the system, it runs. So that tells me everything else is checking out. It's got to be this carburetor. We are talking about a small engine carburetor. You got an engine that won't run. This could be a lawnmower, a weed eater, an ATV, dirt bike, anything like that that uses a small carburetor. We're going to talk about how to clean it. All of them are going to be a little bit different. This one, basically, you've got a fuel feed line in. This is actually just a vent. You've got, this is where the carburetor connects to the engine, and this is where it connects to the air filter. Now, on this one, the throttle actually just screws in from the top, and the choke does the same. A lot of other carburetors are going to have little linkages off the side that, you know, a little spring and cable connects to. Most of the time when you take one of these carburetors apart, the bowl here in the bottom is going to be full of fuel. So I always like to do it on top of a pig mat. Now the first step, I'm going to take the bowl off. This one has got 4 screws that hold it on. Once we have all the screws out of the bowl, we're going to try to take the bowl off the carburetor. A lot of times they'll be stuck depending on how old the engine is and the carburetor is. So you can use a little screwdriver or something to kind of pry this thing off of here. So I want to be careful, really careful not to damage any of the surfaces. There, it popped loose. Separate the 2 pieces. Now when we're looking at the bowl, you can see all the garbage down in there. That tells me there's the jets and anything else is probably plugged up in this carburetor. Now we're going to want to clean this bowl all out before we put it together. There's not a whole lot of functioning parts in the bowl itself. You see this tube right here. What that actually is an overflow. So when the carburetor and the bowl gets too full, it runs down that tube and out this. That's how it gets rid of excess fuel. So now we're dealing with the carburetor itself. What we have is the float here in the bottom. So this thing is down. While this is down, it's allowing fuel down into that bowl. As the bowl fills up, this float comes up and blocks off the flow. As it uses the fuel in the carburetor, the float comes back down, allows more fuel in. That's how it's metering how much is getting into the bowl itself. Now the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this float out of here and the actual needle that allows the fuel to come in and out. So most of these are just going to have just a little rod that you push out. That allows your float to come up off out of the carburetor. Now I can already tell this carburetor has issues. That float, the little valve that allows the fuel into the bowl, should have come off with this. And if we look close right here, it's actually stuck in the carburetor itself. So that tells me that it's just got enough garbage in there that it's stuck. Now when you're pulling this out, you want to make sure you don't pull on that little spring. That will damage it. You want to grab the body itself and see if we can get it out of here. There it is. So that was the first problem with this carburetor, is with that being stuck, it doesn't open up and allow fuel down into the bowl itself. I'll also bet that we have some clogged up jets on this carburetor. First thing I want to do is take this center jet out. There'll be another one down here, and then the port in the bottom of where that float piece was, we need to make sure that's not clogged as well. Now, as we look at this piece, same story, lots of debris on there, lots of gunk. You should be able to see through that little pinhole, and you can't. So that tells me this jet is plugged up as well. Now for the small jet, you gotta be careful. Sometimes these things are seized in and you don't want to damage it. Luckily this one is not. Same thing, little bitty pinholes, lots of garbage just plugging it up. Now that we've got the carburetor mostly apart, this is usually as far as you need to go, especially if you just have a lawnmower or an engine that was running recently, or maybe last year it got put away for the winter and now it's not. This is usually as far as you need to go. So we're going to go through with Carb Cleaner, spray the whole thing out. Want to make sure you get good cleaner in both of these, as well as through the jets you removed. Then we're going to come back and blow compressed air through all of this to make sure that we get everything out. Now you'll start to figure out where all the different ports go. So if we spray Carb Cleaner down there, you see it come out the front. So that tells me, we're clear on that port. We're going to do the same thing throughout the carburetor. Another place you need to verify is where the fuel comes in. I'm going to blow some cleaner through that. Now we're going to take our compressed air gun and try to blow out all these different ports. So where we took those jets out, we want to make sure we're getting air through there. Actually, what I'm seeing with this one is where my fuel comes in, this is where that air should be coming out. I can't get air to go completely through that either way, so I've still got a blockage in there somewhere. One trick I like to use when I run into this kind of scenario is just a piece of wire. The smaller, the better, that you can actually get it in there and see if you can push through whatever is plugging that thing up. And if we pull that out, you can still see how nasty it is down in there. Don't forget the jets that you removed. You need to clean these off as well. I'm going to run some air through them just like we did with the carburetor. When you're done with these, you want to make sure that you can see light through them. You should be able to. It's a really small hole, but you should be able to see through them. So I'm not having much luck cleaning this small jet. I can't see light through it or get any air. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop these here, and then I'm going to just soak them probably overnight. Same thing on where my fuel line goes into the carburetor. I'm going to just fill this up with Carb Cleaner. Let that set overnight, see if that helps.
24 hours later.
After soaking the jets overnight, I was able to get air to blow through all of them. I was also able to get air to blow into my fuel inlet, into the carb, come out here. So now we're all clear. So now we can start reassembling this thing. So we're gonna start by putting our jets back in. Now we can reinstall our float. What we want to do is take the little needle that came off of that, put it up on the float, and then set it down back into place, and put your rod back in. So now that our float's back in, our jets are all back in, we're ready to put the bowl back on. Now another thing, when you've got a carburetor that's as gunked up as this one is, you're gonna wanna drain that fuel tank. So the line that you pulled off that fed the fuel into the carburetor, we're just gonna put this into a waste container, turn our fuel on, let that whole system drain out, get fresh gas in there so we don't plug that carburetor that we just spent all the time cleaning. And on an application like this is the perfect time, of course, check your air filter, make sure you don't have any problems there. Make sure your throttle is working like it's supposed to. So this one's got a thumb throttle up here. If we look down here, that seems to be actuating okay. We'll do the same thing here with our choke. Make sure that when we turn the choke on, this is actuating. So I put this carburetor back on, still wouldn't run. I figured out I made a rookie mistake. This is good learning moment for this video. I was more paying attention to the camera than what I was doing. Put the float in upside down. So let's flip this thing back over. There we go. So now we got the carburetor reinstalled, everything put back together. I actually got a couple new fuel lines. The old ones were dry rotted. Drained the fuel tank, new fuel into it. Let's see if it'll start. And there we go. We just had a plugged up carburetor. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button and I'll see you guys next time.